I see that it's been pretty well received, and I'm going to try to get to the questions on the dope issue tonight. Now, it was asked on the forum about doping, about nitrate and butyrate. There's a few rules of, trains of thought on the nitrate-butyrate side. The nitrate is supposedly more of a glue than the butyrate, and it will attach the covering better, and it doesn't shrink. Supposedly, non-tauntauning. I don't use it. I'm not saying you can't use it, but I don't use it. I have found that by using all butyrate dope, I get excellent results. And this goes all the way back to the Aerogloss days of when we really had some good paint. And I think the reason why that Aerogloss got taken off the market is because it either had xylene or MEK in it. And those chemicals are pretty hazardous to your health, while they do work very well. And the reason they work very well is because the thinner is hot, and while dope is considered an adhesive and not a paint, it is of lacquer base, meaning it's a toluene type base paint. And those lacquers are chemical bond. That means that the dope is bonding with the layer beneath it in a chemical reaction, as opposed to enamels where it's a mechanical bond. And mechanical bond needs to be rough. It needs to have tooth, so that this first layer of paint, after you sanded scratches into the first layer of paint, the second layer can flow in and attach itself to those scratches. And that's the term mechanical bond. While the lacquers are chemical bond, meaning that the layer of paint is very smooth, and the thinner in the second layer is so hot that it melts the first layer and becomes one in that direction. This is why you can't just sit down and start shooting layer after layer of paint and building it up, because what you end up with is one giant thick layer of paint, because you didn't give any time for it to gas off. Now, let's talk about thinner quantity. Actually, let's talk about thinner, period. The Randolph thinner is $50 a gallon, and I forgot to order another gallon today, so I'll have to get that up and going first thing in the morning. $50 a gallon. It is ridiculously expensive, way more than it's worth. 3608S was $17 to $25 a gallon, and it worked relatively well with lacquer paints. But it doesn't work well with dope, in my opinion. Some people have luck with it, I don't. I am going to stick with the Randolph product at $50 a gallon. That is ridiculous, that cost. And I believe most of that is EPA tax of some type, because the chemicals can't be worth that much in that gallon can that years ago used to cost $5. You used to be able to buy lacquer thinner for $5 a gallon. Go try that now. Even the gun cleaning thinner is $17 a gallon. It's a joke. So anyway, now we've talked about thinner, let's talk about thinner quantity. I've noticed on the forum some guys are talking about straight dope on the first coat. Some guys are talking about 50-50, 60-40, 70-30. The best answer I can put out for you on the quantity of thinner is it takes what it takes. Now, yeah, it's pretty a broad spectrum, but let's delve into that. Some of the old guys, and I was guilty myself, used to put 100% thinner in the first two coats, or 100% dope on the first two coats of dope on the raw wood, followed by the 50-50 mix thinner dope ratio through the silk span. That works. However, it's harder to get light. If you take and thin your first 2 layers of dope to 50%, 50-50 thinner dope, and put on 1 coat of dope, and when you get the airplane, it will, well, you know, it acts like you didn't even put any on it. Well, not to worry. Put the second coat on, and possibly a third, depending on how porous and how much dope that the wood that you have sucks up, until it gets hairy, and there'll be little hairs on it. Take 320, knock those hairs off. That's it. That's all you got to do. And what we're doing there is we're giving the tissue something to stick to, because tissue doesn't stick to wood. You have to have dope underneath it, and it's the dope that's sticking to the wood and the dope that's going through the tissue sticking dope to dope. So now you have to have, when you start tissuing, you have to have 60-40. That's my opinion. If it works for you at another ratio, hey, more power to you. 60-40 is where I start on the first layers of dope through the tissue. The minimum it's going to take is 2 coats, and more than likely 3. And you want to knock those, you don't, and especially if you're polyspanning, do not sand polyspan with anything greater than 600 sandpaper if you don't have any dope on the polyspan. And 2 coats is not enough. 3 coats on polyspan to think about starting to sand. You want to stay off the cap strips on that, on polyspan. Let's see, there was one other thing. Oh, brush drag. There's a couple of factors there. One is it's not thin enough, or 2, that you don't have enough paint on the brush. You can take straight dope on the brush, straight dope, and I can get it to flow out. You just put enough paint on it and then pull the brush across so that it's lubricating the hairs. If you're dry brushing, you're going to have brush marks, period. The trick is, once in my finishing process, the trick is 2 coats 50-50 on the raw wood, sand with 320 sandpaper. Then we're going to go to the tissue, double-aught silk span or polyspan. The polyspan's put down with 60-40 clear dope. You're going to have a minimum of 2 coats of dope on that, probably 3. And you want to bring that polyspan and the tissue up until it has a light shine on it. And it's not really a shine, it's a sheen. And once it has that sheen, you can sand with the 600. So sand it with 600, then we're going to abandon the brush and go to spray. Now I use DC 540, and I tape off all the open bays. I don't spray primer on the open bays, because what you're doing there is you're just carrying around extra weight. Because the primer is only to fill the grain and any imperfections. And if you have a piece of tissue spanned across 2 rib bays, there's not going to be any ripples in it. It's going to be straight across because there's nothing in the way. But on the wood and then the fuselage, we're using DC 540. I sand the DC 540 with 320 and get it all to look really smooth. And once that's really looks smooth, I sand it with 600, and I bring it to a translucent state, meaning that I can see through the primer down to the wood, but not all the way. You have to learn when to stop. And that's the lightest you're going to get with DC 540. Get it all off, down, translucent. All you're using that for is basically filling the low spots. So when you wonder where did all the primer go, look on the floor. It's on the floor, or at least that's where it should be. It's about $3 a can. I buy a case at a time. They were supposed to have a case for me today. They didn't get it in. I got 2 cans. I picked that up, but I got to go back for more. And I don't know. We're having kind of a logistical problem here. Now, as far as the live stream, I was asked about when I'm going to do a live stream. Well, a lot of things happening. I can only do what I can do. I'm also working on a cockpit video. You'll notice there's a lot of responses to the cockpit video. Well, that's bogus. There's no thread up on the cockpit video because the cockpit video hasn't been uploaded. What's happened is somehow the live feed has got cross in with that, and the cockpit video shows me making this box. I remade the cockpit 3 times. So I have a lot of footage in the camera, but I just haven't had the time to upload it. And it also shows how I made the seat back with the rivets on it, and which is no big deal. And then of course my pilot goes in there. And I'm still debating on whether to use my pilot because he is rather heavy. And when I say heavy, he's pretty heavy. And I spent a lot of time grinding the inside of him out. When I started, this was all solid. And I more or less ground this out so you can see through it. But it's still too heavy. And I'm going to get out the vacuum form and vacuum form some parts on that. So that's going to be a kind of an important video to watch. I'm hoping that the content's good for you. Be sure to like, subscribe, share. There's a button up on top. Making content costs me money. Donate. It's $10, $20, whatever you can do. Help the cause. Help me bring content to you. The most important thing is I need 1,000 subscribers. It was 500 to get my own URL. I got my own URL right now, so you can type in Stunt Hangar on YouTube and pull us up. But I need 1,000 before I can offer, before I'm going to get in as a YouTube partner, so that Horizon Hobby, Tower Hobby, Balsa USA, all the modeling companies will take notice of us because we'll have a target market and, go ahead and support our endeavor, and that's my goal. And if you're watching this and you're a Stunt Hangar member, one of the 4,500 Stunt Hangar members, I beg you, subscribe to this channel. Whether you watch it or not, that's immaterial. If everybody on Stunt Hangar subscribed to my YouTube channel, I'd have the goal made. So I'm gonna stop the video here and we'll post this up. Remember, like, subscribe, support with the banner up on top, so I can bring good content to you. So until I see you in a bit, fair winds, tie lines. See ya!